Joining us now, we have Ashley Hayek, Chief Engagement Officer at the America First Policy Institute, and also Democratic strategist Kaivan Shroff. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Kaivan, let me start with you. President Trump was the first to announce his rally with striking auto workers on Wednesday. Do you think that made President Biden feel pressured? And would we even have seen him go today if it weren't for Trump's visit?
Not at all. I think, Trump had to announce that because he doesn't want to show up at the GOP debate happening tomorrow. Joe Biden.
But he also doesn't need to.
Joe Biden has centered his campaign around being the most pro-union president in history, and how better to cap that off than showing up and making history by standing on the picket lines with these striking workers.
Mm-hmm. Ashley, President Trump won Michigan in 2016, lost it in 2020. What kind of impact could both presidents' visits have on voters there? And does one of these men, one of these presidents, stand to gain more than the other here?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to argue that you're the most pro-union or pro-worker president when you are mandating electric vehicles, which will ultimately eliminate 50% of American auto manufacturing jobs. The minerals that are needed for these batteries for EVs are coming from China. 80% of them are coming from China. So when you are offshoring our jobs, when you are cutting 50% of the workforce, you are no longer the most pro-worker president. Now, what's interesting about this politically is if you go back to 2016, when the EPA was trying to overregulate coal, that was when there was a huge opportunity for then candidate Trump to come into the scene in places like West Virginia and Pennsylvania and really pick up a lot of that union support. And the fact that you have a government that is overreaching yet again, it really presents a unique opportunity for President Trump to come in and really win over the hearts of these American workers.
Yeah, and Ashley, you bring up a great point that Kaivan, I want to ask you about, and that's the green energy part of this. President Biden has touted himself as the most pro-union president in history, but it's impossible to ignore how his stance on green energy transitioning to electric vehicles would slash thousands of jobs for those who build internal combustion engines. UAW president, Shawn Fain, has even said he won't endorse Biden yet because of that. So how does President Biden walk that line today? And quite literally, too.
Sure. I think the gift of Joe Biden has been his ability to bring people along with him. And yes, he certainly has a harder task than Trump, who can go down there and just sort of serve up his greatest rambling hits. Biden will have to make the case of how he's going to both protect the unions, protect those jobs, and also bring everyone along to have a piece of our future, our hopefully climate responsible future, our digital future, all of it. It all goes together. And I think it's worth pointing out, since we're talking about, track records here, Donald Trump blamed the UAW for the auto industry's near collapse during the financial crisis. Joe Biden points to that same moment as an example of where the UAW and the union stood up to save the industry. So that tells you really everything you need to know about the two different positions the president and the former president have.
And Ashley, I had just brought up that the UAW president has said he won't endorse Biden yet. I have to be fair and say he's not endorsing anyone yet. He's also said he won't endorse Trump at this time, because how can millionaires, billionaires know and fix the problems of the working class? Your response to that, and is this truly the right battle for President Trump to choose this week?
Yeah, I think right now, another big issue is that when you have $9 billion from the federal government going to Ford, you see the amount of money that the president, the leadership, the union leadership has spent to lobby Democrat politicians who are really writing them off into extinction. It shows that there's a disconnect between the union leaders and the union workers. And I think that the people that this President Trump is trying to win over are really the union workers here at the end of the day, whether or not he gets that endorsement. However, I think that if I were a member of the Democrat Party in Michigan right now, I would be very, very nervous that we don't have another 2020 Joe Biden moment where he shows up in Michigan and meets with auto workers and tells one of them that they're full of shit.
Mm-hmm. And let me get the last word from both of you, because we don't have that much longer here. But historically, UAW presidential endorsements have gone to Democrats, and the candidate also marching alongside union leaders in the Detroit Labor Day parade. Who's going to get the official endorsement, and how much influence does a union endorsement actually have on the rank and file members inside the voting booth come 2024? Ashley, I'll end with you and then go to Kaivan.
Like I said, I don't think the actual endorsement is the ultimate end game here. I think what it really is going to matter is that President Trump showing up and reaching to the American worker, because those are the people that represent, those 85,000 people who would eventually lose their jobs due to the Biden administration. So that's the people he's going to connect with when he shows up in Michigan.
Yeah. Kaivan?
I think it's convenient for Ashley to say the endorsement doesn't matter because Trump doesn't have a chance at getting it, I believe. The UAW endorsed Joe Biden in 2020. They're going to endorse him again, is my prediction. He has absolutely delivered on his pledges for supporting unions.
Okay, we'll see how the next 2 days play out. I'll end it there. Ashley Hayek and Kaivan Shroff, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.